We have a Dyson Gen 5 detect. I'm going to open up and explore the insides. First of all, we need to remove the battery by pressing the button here. So the battery on this is removable. Please note the charger for the Gen 5 and the other older Dysons are actually different. Next, we're going to remove the filter. Please note there's actually grooves here that you need to look at. It needs to align here to fit the filter in. So you can turn it anti-clockwise to open it. And to put it back in, you need to realign it. And you can put it back in, just like that. Now that's see-through, it makes it easy. Next, I'm going to show you how to disassemble the filter. You can actually disassemble the filter completely, but I'll only show you how to disassemble the filter partly, because once you completely disassemble it, you're not able to reassemble it due to the way it's designed. So I'm just pointing out here, there's actually clips. These lines here are actually clips. So to remove the filter, we need to get like a screwdriver or a prying tool. We need to first remove the rubber black band. This allows it to be sealed against your vacuum cleaner. So just get your prying tool and put it underneath. Once you grab a hold of it, you can just pull it out. Since it's rubber, it's like a rubber band, it goes back into place normally. So we need to remove our seal. Next, you just need to put your hand in. You might not be able to see it, but there's actually holes here. It's a bit hard to see, but if you have it in front of you, you're about to see it. Please note, all the clips and holes are not the same size. So you just need to put your hand in and lift it up. So if you lift it up with your hand, it will slowly come out. So here you go. As you can see, there's actually holes here. The holes are not the same size, like I said before. One is longer, one shorter. So because the filter part only goes in one way. So make sure you look at your clips when you put it back in to see if it's the right clip in the right hole. So just to put it back in, you should put your rubber ring on first, which makes it easier to, because if you put the filter on, it's actually really hard to put the rubber ring on. Remember, the rubber ring also has a direction, so remember to put your rubber ring on the correct direction. Also look at the clip size, so which size is which, so you can align it correctly. Once it's aligned, you can just push it down and it clips in place. Just test it, make sure it's clipped. As you see here on top, there's actually also cutouts that need to also align. So we now need to get our vacuum cleaner, shove it back in to ensure it fits. Please note the word HEPA filter actually goes on top of where the word Dyson is. That's how you align it. So next, we're going to remove our bin. So just pull your bin out. Remember to press the number 1 button before you can slide it out. To slide it back in, there's actually rails on the vacuum, and there's rails on the bin as well, where you have to align it. Once you get in, you can just give it a bit of a tap or smack, and it'll go back in. Now to remove it, remember you have to press your button here. If your bin slides out when you throw out the rubbish bin, it's probably because your button has an issue or you broke the button stopper. This happens a lot on the V11, V15, where the button stopper actually breaks. So we're now going to remove the rubber ring on the outside. So we're just going to get our prying tool, which is a screwdriver in my case. to pry it open. Once it's open, if you stretch it, it goes out. Please note the rubber ring has a flat side and the whole circular side, so you need to put the flat side at the back, and it's actually easier if you put the flat side in first, because the flat side is actually more tight. If you put the other side in first, it's actually a bit difficult due to stretching it out. When you put in the rubber ring, you need to remember to stretch it out evenly, or else you'll have some areas that are compressed and some areas that are too tight. So we're just testing it if it still works. So we go around the outside to see if the rubber ring is sitting on properly. Next, the middle, do not remove this. Since I'm making a video, I'm showing you. So you're looking at the side, you need to know how deep the rubber ring needs to go down. That gives you good indication, so when you return it, you need to know how to push it down, how much to push down in. So to remove it, you just take it out. It's really easy. There's a groove, there's an in and outside groove. But to put it back, it's extremely difficult. This is why you're told not to take it out. There is no reason why you should take it out. I'm only doing it since I'm actually doing a disassemble video. Other than that, do not take it out. This is a warning. You take it out, you're going to find that you're going to have a lot of issues. So here, I'm pushing it down slowly, going around bit by bit. There's a reason why we want to go around bit by bit. If you put one side down too much, it actually stretches it. So therefore, one area of the ring is stretched and one area has too much rubber. So now I'm just going to get one of my guitar picks or prying tool, whatever you want to call it, to assist me to push it down further. So the idea is you need to return the rubber ring back to the original level that we looked at before we removed it. If it's not down enough, when you close your lid, it hits the vacuum and then it makes it really difficult to close your rubbish bin. Or while you're using your vacuum, the lid will automatically open due to it not being close enough. So we're just going around to inspect. You're going to have some places that are higher, some places that are lower. So try to get them all down to the original level. I'm just using my guitar pick tool as it's actually easier to push it down at this stage. Try to make sure it's going down to the correct level. So if you look at the video now, you can see part of it's uneven. That should be fine. The idea is we just have to test with our vacuum cleaner if we can actually now close it properly. If we close and sits properly and the lid closes, then that's fine. Remember to check the outside ring as well. If you don't have any more difficult or less difficult taking it in and out, that means it's fine. Next, we're going to remove this screw. This is a T8 screw that you need to remove. So we can remove the back part. Now that we remove the screw, next we're going to need our prying tools, guitar picks actually. So you're going to need at least 2, but it's best if you have 4. For my purpose, I broke a few, so I only have 3 left. And you need the flat type. So we need to get our guitar pick or a prying tool, and we need to shove it in here. The reason why there's clips here, and we need to shove the guitar picks in so it can lift up the clips so they don't actually engage anymore. So once you insert your guitar picks, it will now lift up the two parts apart, so the clips won't actually lock in anymore. So now if you pull on it, it should come off, just like that. So just to show you, here's the cutouts. And on the base, there's also here protrusions that stick inside. To put it back, you need to put the screwdriver side in first. And then it goes in diagonally. Just give it a whack and it goes in. So put the screw hole in first. Then now if you force it in or slap it, it'll go in. So we're going to remove this. As you can see, there's 6 screws to disassemble this part. This is a Phillips head screw. On the older models, the V15, V11, V10, this is actually, there's no screws here. It's actually held in by clips. But due to the way the clips are held, after removing it a few times, you actually can break the clips. So it seems like they've upgraded to new screws instead. Now that we removed all the 6 screws, it actually comes apart straightforward and simple. So remember to look at this. The red part actually has cutouts for where the screw goes, and actually has a line. So you make sure you have to put it back, you need to align everything correctly. Also, on this part, there's actually cutouts here too that enable the grooves of the red part to go in. So if you don't align it correctly, it doesn't sit in. So once you align it, remember to push it down and shake it a bit to make sure it's locked in place. So next, we're going to remove the filter part. So there's actually 5 screws in here, and you actually need a special screwdriver. I actually had to buy this. So the screwdriver needs to be this long for you to remove it, and it needs to be extremely thin. So your normal screwdriver is actually too thick to actually go in. Even this is slightly too thick. Now that we put all the screws together, or to put back. We're now going to put it back in. So to put it back in, you need to put the screw hole part first in, diagonally. Once that is in, you just need to give the part sticking out a whack. So align the screw hole. There's only one. Once it's aligned, give it a whack and it'll go in. So I actually forgot to put the T8 screw back in to hold it. But after you do everything, remember to test if it still works correctly. So we now need to put it back in to ensure that it's actually closed properly and there's no problems. So next, we're gonna remove this. To remove the next part, you need a special screwdriver. The screwdriver needs to be extremely long and extremely thin. Dyson has actually changed how they did this part. They made it really difficult for a normal screwdriver to fit in here. So I have to buy this screwdriver, which is a special order just for this purpose. So for most of you guys, you probably will not be able to do this, as you probably don't have a screwdriver like this to disassemble it. Try to get a magnetic tip one. So mine's not magnetic tip, so it's really hard for me to actually reassemble it since the screw actually falls out, and there's actually basically impossible for me to realign it correctly. So there's around 5 screws here that you have to remove. Now that we remove those 5 screws, we have to remove 2 screws from here. These are also Phillips head screwdrivers as well. I already removed them, as I forgot. So after you do that, you can just lift it up and it comes off. So here are the 5 screws. You can see the screw holes. So my screws are actually still in the motor part. So it's actually recommended you should leave the screws in there. So when you reassemble it, it makes your life easier. But since I'm making this disassembly video, I'm just going to show you there's actually 5 screws in there. So I wouldn't recommend you to do this part and just leave your screws in there. So it's easier for you to reassemble it later. So here are the 5 screw holes for this side. Next, we need to remove one screw here. This is a Torque T8 screwdriver that you need to remove. So the hole is a bit deep and my tip actually doesn't reach it. So a good way to do it is to let go of your piece first. Make sure it's aligned correctly. Then use your screwdriver to unscrew it. The screw is there. Sometimes the screw for this doesn't fall out. So if it doesn't fall out, it doesn't matter. So to put it back, you need to realign your bin rail. So this is how I do it when your bit is a bit short. By actually putting the bit in first, and then using your screwdriver. So so your bit doesn't go all the way in your screwdriver, giving you a slightly further reach. Next, we need to remove 4 screws holding the top part of the filter in. They also Torque T8 screwdrivers. Now that we removed the 4 screws, we can lift it up. Next, we're going to take this rubber piece off. So you just stretch the rubber piece and it comes out. Please note, to put this rubber piece back is actually quite difficult, as if you don't put it back evenly, when you close it, it actually it leans to one side more or one side less. So if you look at the rubber piece, it actually has a cutout groove to fit in this slot, and also has cutouts for screws. So when you put in, try to not stretch it too much, as it needs to go back evenly. Even if you stretch it, you just have to go around and to fix your stretch or make it even. This here has basically a clip. You need to make sure it goes into the cutout correctly. There's only one of these in the whole circle, so it needs to go into the right slot, or else it will not close properly. So I'm just going around to ensure that my rubber piece is stretched evenly, as some places were sticking out more and some places were in deeper. Now that I ensured it's gone in correctly, we just have to test to ensure that when we close it, the circles, the rubber gasket is straight, basically, not uneven somewhere. If you look at the video, it's actually slightly uneven. So sorry, I just had to cut the video. So I need to get my hammer and chopsticks to do the next part. So to do the next part, you need to get your 2 chopsticks or 2 poking sticks to push out the connector. I know you can't see in this part, but after I push out the connector, it makes more sense. Or if you have your vacuum cleaner in front of you, it makes a lot more sense. Now we need to get our hammer to force our connector out. If you look at the bottom, you can see the connector is popping out. So I'm just going to put it back. So to open the connector, there's actually a gate on one side. So you can open it here. And the white cable is on the hidden side. And the black cable is where the latch goes. Make sure there's actually a groove. So when you put it in, the strings actually don't fall out. So the idea is you need to get your 2 chopsticks and put it on the side of the connector. And then we use the hammer to force the connector out by hammering it. Please note it actually does damage your connector, but this is probably the easiest method to remove it. And only in the film it looks like I haven't, or it looks in like it's easy for me to make it come out, but I actually broke 4 pairs of chopsticks before it actually came out. I do have a video that shows you how to remove the connector in a nice way and how to do it in the quick way. So please watch my other video if you wish to know that. Please ignore this part. You actually do not need to cut this. So they have shrink wrap here to combine the 2 cables together or to hold them together. In the previous model, V11, 15 and V10, you have to cut this off to continue. But for the Gen 5, they changed a few things in it that we do not need to cut it anymore. So next, we need to remove 3 T8 torque screwdrivers. After you remove the screws, you can just lift it up slightly. It's best if you take the screws out. It makes your life easier. Now we need to lift it up slightly so we can put tension on it. There's this square, and the square, since the square sits flush with it, it makes it really hard to come out. So just to show you again how to remove it, we need to pull from the back side. we can remove this rubber piece. It just comes off. It makes it easier when you remove it. So we need to align the screw holes for the square. It's best to align the screw holes. It actually makes life easier. Once you align the screw holes, you can push it down. It goes back in. So this square, since it sits flush with the outside filter, you need to misalign it somehow. So it's best if you pull from the other side and press in from the top. So you need to push the inside square in, so the outside of the filter can go out. Since they aligned, it actually it's stopped by it. So here on top as well, you have part of the square blocking your path. So it's best to push the inner square in and your outer one out, and it should come out pretty easy. Next, we need to remove another 4 T8 screws to disassemble the next part. There's actually a particle sensor, as the Gen 5 Detect has a particle sensor. It tells you how much particle there is. I do not show you how to remove it, as previously I do show you how to remove it in the V10, and some people damaged it, so therefore I have stopped people showing how to remove it. It's actually the black square on the screen now that has 4 screws. There's no point removing it, it doesn't do anything. So I actually don't recommend you to touch it in case you damage it. So now that we remove the screw, the back part actually comes off. Oh, you can also remove the square. This allows the air to come in and out from the bottom chamber all the way up. Please note there's actually rails here that you need to align to the top and bottom before you can put it back in. So to remove this part, you can just wiggle it out and the back parts will come off. Due to we still have the cable inside, we actually can't remove this middle section properly. And I don't recommend anyone to remove it. So to remove the back, you can just force it out. There's no clips or anything, it just aligns correctly. So here, you can actually remove the gaskets. So there's the middle one is black. So be careful with this. If you rip the gasket, you actually lose suction. So when you put back your gasket, remember to align the bottom with the bottom. It goes in pretty easily, just take it slow, as you won't be able to get replacement parts for this, as Dyson does not sell it. So remember to align the bottom with the bottom. So here we go. I've put it back correctly. Just make sure you go around it once again to ensure it's seated down correctly. So in the cyclone part, there's actually two, the inner cyclone and the outer cyclone. So the inner cyclone and the outer cyclone actually has rails that you need to align before you put it back in. But due to the connector there, we actually cannot remove the middle part with the cyclone. To put it back in the inner cyclone, you just have to realign it. Then we put this on top, the gasket part. You might have to bend it a bit to put the gasket part in properly. But since the gasket part is soft plastic, it goes in properly. The outer cover, when you put this in, you just need to align it and align the screw holes, and it should go in correctly. So due to the detector, we actually cannot remove it, and I don't really recommend anyone to remove this. So now we're going to get our Torque T8 screwdriver to put back 4 screws. Please make sure you use the right screw hole, as there's actually 7 screw holes there, but we actually only use 4. And when we put the filter on, we use the other 3. So if you put the wrong screw in the wrong hole, you won't be able to screw the next part in, and you have to redo this part. So just please take note. So we need to put our square back. Next, we need to put our outer filter. Remember to align this outer square with the inner one. Remember to make sure it sits flush once you complete it. If it doesn't sit flush, then you're going to lose suction. So now that it sits flush, we're going to put our 3 screws back in using our Torque T8 screwdriver. Now that we're done with that, we need to put our rubber ring back. Remember, the rubber ring goes in one side only. We want this flap to be on top. We now need to put our cables through this hole where the connector is. Once you align it correctly, you want to check if your rubber gasket thing in the middle is correct. As you can see, mine is not correct. So I have to readjust it. So if you don't put it correctly, when you put it down, it's actually not circular, as some parts are bent more than others. So we have to align the tab with the tab. This might take you a few tries to get it properly, but just work on it and it'll slowly work out. So the idea is to not get it some parts too stretch or some parts too compress. It needs to be all even and needs to go in all the way. Now we test it again. So now that I close it, it's actually more even. So that's acceptable. Next, we need to put our connector back in. Remember the white string goes where the hinge is. Make sure you toggle on it to make sure the cable doesn't fall out. And once you're done, you push it back in. Remember to tap it on it to make sure that it is not loose or doesn't fall out. I just need to adjust the rubber ring. As you can see, after putting the screws in, it's not actually not straight anymore. This is going to take you a while, as with the Gen 5, it's actually more difficult compared to the other Dysons. Now that we put all the screws back, we need to get the bin rail first. We need to get our Torque T8 screwdriver to screw back in one screw. Next, we need to get our vacuum. Remember to put your screws in first, or else you won't be able to put it in. So I had to cut the video so I can put the screws in this position. as it is easier for me to put the screws in now. So I cut the video as it's just gonna take too long for me to show you how I put the screws back in. So I put it upside down and put the screws back in advance. So now when I align it, the screws are already in there. This is because my screwdriver is not magnetic, so it makes it impossible for me to put the screws in when the filter part is connected. So now that I put all my 5 screws in, we have to put the 2 screws in where the rail is. Please note the 5 screws are actually Phillips head screwdrivers. This here is my normal screwdriver that I normally used for disassembly, and actually can't work with the 5 screws previously due to the design. I like this screwdriver more because it's thicker and it's easier to use compared to the other one. Now we've done that, we need to put all our parts back to test. So I'm going to put my bin in. I actually forgot to put the screw for the bin in, which is a Torque T8 screw. Now we slide our bin back in. Put our filter back in. Put our battery and test it. So it seems to be working, and that's it. Thanks for watching my video.